Moving towards some more methods and approaches of English language teaching, let's talk about the communicative approach first. The growth and spread of communicative approach can partly be attributed to the growth and spread of English language teaching in the world. English, as it became the lingua franca of the world quite recently, the need for communication skills in this language became enormous. And the methods which were used previously for teaching English may not be able to deal with this communicative demand on the teaching of English. Therefore, people felt the need to introduce new methods which could specially cater the communicative needs of learners around the world. In this regard, the communication approach was proposed by various scholars. Since its proposal in 1970s, this has been a very popular approach throughout the world, and we could see that it has been a major source of influence in English language teaching. And we could see there are multiple approaches, sub-approaches based on communicative approach. The approaches which were in work in ELT before communicative approach basically focused on the product instead of the process. So there was a dire need of an approach which could actually see the learning process and students' communicative ability in the process. Therefore, the communicative approach primarily focused on the communicative or functional aspects of the language. In this regard, it focused on what learners need to understand and express while learning or using a language, instead of mere collection of some grammatical items or structures as it happened in other methods. A few major influences in for the development of communicative approach include Widdowson and Kendall. They relied heavily on the work of other British linguists like Firth and Halliday, who were working in the field of functional linguistics or functional aspects of a language. Similarly, they also take a lot of help from the research in the field of sociolinguistics, which were primarily happening in America by Gumpers, Himes, and Leber. And they actually took help from the concept of communicative competence, which was proposed there. And they also took help from some of the philosophers who were working in the field of language and society. Let's say, for example, Austin and Searle. It was not only a linguistic reason which caused communicative approach to emerge. There were also some political and social changes which were happening in America and Europe, which caused this change. People were meeting each other, distances were being reduced because of the rapid increase of information and emerging speedy ways of communication and transportation. So there was a dire need to develop a method which could actually cater the need of communication in a global language, which could connect people from various parts of the world. CLT, or communicative language teaching, focuses on the communicative competence of the learners who are learning a second language, especially in relation to English language. And it also looks into the development for the procedures which could deal all four skills, but always keep in mind, always keep in focus the integration or the connection between the communication and language. We could see in the history there are some strong and weak versions of CLT. Weak versions of CLT focus on learning language to use it. I mean, people would like to learn a language in order to use it instead of mere classroom subject. However, the strong version of CLT focuses on using language to learn it. It is based on the belief that once you make people use a language, they will learn it automatically, and such a learning probably would be stronger. Some of the major principles of CLT include that learners learn a language through using it to communicate, as I said a while ago. It also believes in authentic and meaningful communication. Fluency is an important component of this approach. Then communication involves the integration of different language skills and not merely a single skill. Learning is a process of creative construction and involves trial and error. As people would commit errors and correct themselves, they would learn automatically. It also focuses on both the knowledge of the language and the meaning, and then as well as the function of that language. Major functions of a language as defined by Halliday in the development of functional grammar or functional language. We could see the functions introduced by the scholar include instrumental, regulatory, interactional, personal, heuristic, imaginative, and representational. So these are various functions, few of them, on which a language teaching could possibly be based. We can see various activities are being done in a CLT classroom, and they always based on some popular language processes. For example, information sharing, negotiation of meanings, and interaction. And the activities include completing a gap or a map, role play, filling an information gap, and some simulation drills as well. Role of learner is very important in CLT because he is not a passive learner here. He is an active participant in the classroom. He is a negotiator between himself, classroom activities, and the other participants in the same class. He is also a contributor. He keeps on contributing while he interacts with other people or the teacher. Role of teacher is quite important in this approach. We could see he is a facilitator between all the people participating in the classroom and between the people or the students as well as the learning objects or the activities. He actually monitors all those activities. He is participant as well, guide and organizer of activities. He is a researcher because he plans activities for his learners. He is a learner himself as well because he learns in the process. He is also a need analyst as well as a counselor. He bases the material being introduced in the class on the needs of his learners, which might have been assessed earlier. Role of instruction material is also very important. We could see we need authentic and real-life communication-based materials, which should ideally be introduced in a CLT classroom, and graphic and visual aids could help in teaching or introducing such materials. This method, as I said in the beginning, has been very popular since its beginning, and we could find various versions of this method or approach. One of the problems with this approach probably is the same one which is caused by its popularity, that there is no single uniform method or approach to which we could call the communicative method. In fact, there are various versions being practiced in different parts of the world. We could also see that it's based on no textbook, which means the formal teaching would become very difficult. Similarly, it's also very difficult to implement because it demands a lot of skills on the part of teacher as well, which might not be available in many contexts where English is taught as a second language.